Hi, everyone. I wanted to welcome Fred Schebesta to DACM Insights. Fred, thanks for joining me.
Wonderful to be sharing with you, as
We've
always.
known each other. We've known each other a long time, Fred, pretty much since the days I think my crypto journey started, and we've seen the technology develop. So I think there'll be a bunch of stuff we can talk about today.
Sure.
Starting off in providing advice around traditional products, you intersected with the crypto. Can you just tell us how your journey, how Finder found its way to crypto, and how you see that intersection of, I guess, the traditional products that you kind of built the business on, and how that's grown into crypto as well?
Yeah, I was in it was funny, I was in New York, like literally starting up Finder in the US, and I kept getting asked about Bitcoin, and people just assumed I knew the answer. And I was like, okay, I haven't quite worked out what this thing is. And then a few other people around me started talking about it, and I was like, okay, I better go and have a look. And then at one late night, really late night, a friend of mine said, okay, let's set up a wallet. And he just sent me some Bitcoin. And in that moment, I was like, whoa, this has value. And you just sent it in the middle of the night without anyone to doing anything. And I was like, there is something going on here. And so we started writing about it on Finder, writing about Bitcoin, writing about Ethereum, writing about just, and people needed information. And that set me on a quest of learning. And I built a YouTube channel, started interviewing a lot of founders, then built an over-the-counter desk, and started learning about how liquidity works around the world. Did a bunch of investing. Then we built a product called Finder Wallet, had an earn product. Unfortunately, had a run-in with ASIC, which I can
We'll
talk
get to
about.
that later.
Yeah, a bit spicy, that one. And I think the journey has been, again, one where I think one of my values is about learning. And I just am so curious. And I felt the same feelings in 2001 when I started building websites, started hosting websites, started, selling them, building them. I was like, this is going to be big. And I felt that same feelings, and I wanted to just keep going, and I just went down into the rabbit hole.
Fred, you mentioned there that, the way you position in crypto, the way you built your business with the crypto connectivity is very different to the rest of your business. What were some of those key differences? Why are crypto people different, and how did you need to adapt?
There's a thing that took me a while to understand in crypto where people, like, there is a monetary aspect that drives it, unlike, something where, if I was to connect this to, it's a bit like someone who follows a football team. They'll always cheer for their team, regardless if they're losing. They'll always support that team. The ref was biased against the team. And there's this tribalness that comes with when you hold a coin, you invest in it, you believe in it. That's another really key thing. You believe in the team, you believe in the mission, you believe. And that can trump logic and rationality. And that is really quite difficult to deal with. Like when you're used to, in my case, we're used to consumers looking at financial products or utilities and going, hey, that's cheaper than that one. That product's better than that product. I'm going to go for that one. And the market herds to those products, right? And people want to know what they are and why. And in this case, you can get people who, regardless if the price is tanking, regardless of the price, if the project is not doing anything, they don't care. They will continue to support it. They'll continue to buy it. They'll continue to promote it. And in fact, sometimes they go even harder when it goes down. And I think that deep connectivity means that you have different channels available to you. You can do a word of mouth campaign and it'll actually do something. You can do a campaign purely based upon Discord. That's a very closed community, closed idea, and have a massive impact. You can create memes, like just GIFs, and they'll have a big impact because it raises the flag of the tribe. It re-incites the message, and it puts a package into the networks that have been established in crypto, where a lot of it's in Telegram channels, WhatsApp groups that are very, very powerful and strong, and it moves markets. And the messages move at light speed because of that connectivity now.
As part of the build out and as part of going deeper down the rabbit hole with crypto, you got to know the Australian regulators better. If you give us a little background on how that battle started and where it's ended up. And
yeah, so, in 2001, we built a product called Finder Earn, and what it allowed you to do was access yield in crypto. We did that by customers would come in, they'd put Australian dollars in, they would convert it into a stable coin. In this case, it was True AUD, and then they would lend that stable coin to us. And then in return, we would pay them a return. It's very analogous to securities lending, where, investment banks have, big amounts of stock, and then they lend those out to people. And the people who own the stock, they pay them a fee. And that's how people go short, essentially. We were then at a time when one of the big exchanges, FTX sort of blew up. And basically the regulator wanted to go and shoot someone. And unfortunately, we looked like a pretty juicy target. And they took up this up against us and started to proceed to investigate us and threaten us actually initially with jail time for 5 years, me personally. Which is kind of like quite aggressive, right? You're trying to go and innovate, and that can lead to jail. And it's a little bit of a conflicting, let's say, move to encourage entrepreneurialism and innovation in a country. And they then proceeded to go and sue us in the federal court for having an unlicensed financial product. We defended ourselves and won the first case. Then they went and appealed that case again to 3 other judges, and they lost unanimously. All 4 judges unanimously threw that case out. And they could have taken it to the High Court, but they chose not to. And so that case is now ended, and it is case law. And in fact, did lawyers in the crypto space come up to me, and they know me from the legal side, and they go, "Oh, we read your affidavit. We've read, what you did. That's really smart how you went about. You interpreted the Corporations Act." I personally went to the law and unpacked it to the level where a former federal judge agreed with me, and our internal team. Our law firm agreed with us. Like, we went to the nth degree to be compliant. And we have licenses to remove doubt in multiple countries. It's not like we're not a regulated, not up for regulation and compliance. But they agreed this is not a financial. This product is not a financial product. Firstly, crypto is not a financial product, and ASIC even said that. And this product you've constructed is not requiring a financial services license. And now the federal court agrees. But the damage was incredible. We're talking personally that it has hurt me a lot. It really was a very, very challenging time. The company also took a very big hit from that, reputationally, all sorts of things in the media. Many, many, many different dimensions of it have hurt. But I would say, if I was to zoom out on that, I think that's the path of an innovator. That's what you get. The Wright brothers didn't have a pilot's license. Fortunately, the US government didn't go and sue them for it, but and so I feel grateful now to have gone through that journey and all of the things that I've learned. Some of probably the hardest, most brutal lessons I've learned in business.
So we've seen a global trend towards more accommodative, growth-focused regulatory and legislative settings around crypto. Do you think, the pain you went through with that personal and finder struggle, do you think that's helped move the Australian lens of how they're going to look at crypto going forward?
I hope that, and I've heard this anecdotally from people celebrate it. They know it was a brutal fight, but I think it has re-inspired people in crypto in Australia to go, hey, the regulator can be wrong. And I'll just share this anecdote. There's a guy, and I won't mention his name just for the sake of it. He used to work at ASIC and he helped us legally. And he said to me, he goes, Fred, people don't win against ASIC. They don't win. It doesn't happen. It's like, it doesn't. And I think that's important, right? I think that's important for crypto. And I think that's important for Australia in the small part. It's good energy. And I don't know what all is going to come from that. I hope something great's going to come from that. I actually don't know. I haven't thought it through enough. But I do, people say like, good on you for taking up and defending yourself and saying no, because they could have just tailed out early. But instead, yeah, I hope in some small way, it adds to the posture and the progression of regulation in Australia.
I think people have seen me talk on a bunch of podcasts or pull some of my writings. I have a very strong view that technology always wins over regulation. That's a very blanket statement, because there's got to be people on the ground like you, Fred, who are willing to take the fight up to the regulator to make that actual reality. You're a true technologist. You've been proven over the last 25 years to have a great read on where technology is going, where the future's going. Crypto seems like it's at a pretty good inflection point of, it's kind of come through the hard yards. It's proven it's got a bunch of product market fit kind of categories. It can add real utility to users. It could be a proper new asset class. One of the things you're seeing now that get you excited about it as you kind of look forward for the next 5 years and roll up your sleeves looking for innovation and investment opportunities and ability to partner with new entrepreneurs.
It's really interesting you say that, because I was reflecting on, what's happening, like where are we? And we're in this, everyone talks about these Bitcoin cycles to some extent, and there's this weird kind of feeling in the market right now. And it's kind of like, I always think, like, what's the expected news or breakthrough that might be coming? I was trying to like look at the future and the forecast. And I think that one of the real, I guess I'd say almost undervalued, I'm sure you probably have spoken about this, Richard, as well, and although I'd say deceptively powerful use cases that I think is starting to really kick is stable coins. And the dimensions of it are quite obvious. You could send stable coins to each other as a form of money transfers, but the actual adoption of some of the, I look at it like almost ports of money, MasterCard, Western Union, like big ports where money goes in and out between countries, between organizations, between people. I think they really can see genuinely, like Western Union when they began and they were delivering telegrams to people as an innovation, and it disrupted the guy riding on a horse with a letter, in a cargo thing. And, all of a sudden, this was going to be a serious business, and it obviously that turned into wiring money as well around. And I think that in that same vein, we're very close, I think, to a real disruption. I'm gonna use that word in its exact form, but many, 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 many things had to go right, and we're just not even in near the wheelhouse of what could have been, should have been, et cetera, et cetera. I think some of the parts I look at is, the take up of people using crypto debit cards and how easy it is to get now and how it's accepted and it's people just roll with it. And I think that's a big part. I think some of this infrastructure about moving stablecoins around from an institutional perspective, I think that's another thing. This banks, allowing them and their ability to hold crypto in some way, shape, or form as well, I think is like we're talking like very, very like big legacy pieces that had to move, and they move very slowly, and almost you forget about it. You're like, and I think the stat I heard the other day is like Tether hasn't been around that long, and the Tether itself, I remember it was kind of like seen as this, oh, that's really unpredictable. It's probably going to devalue, or every day everyone's going to threaten and FUD it, like literally every day. And sometimes it would dip down. I remember when it hit 72 cents and it was pretty scary. And I think the thing which I was fascinated by, I read this post about, is just the exponential growth of Tether. And if you actually look at its TVL over time, it starts out actually quite small numbers, but it's actually the actual rate of its growth, even though it is small numbers, is very high. And if you compound that over time and you look at that and you grow it out, it's enormous now. Like, it is genuinely a significant thing in financial terms. And I don't see that slowing. Like, I can't think of some major disturbance. Obviously, if there's some big mess up in it in some way, shape, or form, but just putting that to the side, you've got Circle and a whole series of other things. But I just think that, my deep belief in crypto, where it comes from, is a new financial system. That's my whole thing. That's my raison d'etre. I think it's just so more efficient way of doing finance. And I think the stablecoin is this incredible use case. It's this incredible utility, and it gives a reason for many blockchains to exist. Like, I think, this is probably a loose statement, but Tron, to me, with its USDT partnership, has made it still a thing. And it was very fast to move, and a lot of other blockchains got clogged up, and that's a genuine use case. Maybe not today. I think there's probably a whole series of other things that have happened and those kind of things. But regardless, this idea of sending a token representative of a fiat currency to another person and it being accepted as a means of currency on a 24-hour, 7 days a week basis where no one else is in between, that is a very, very powerful idea that I don't think has fully recognized. But if you think about it today, now imagine that in 5 years' time, I think we are going to see that virus and that sort of garden bloom into, like, that would be very high fertility of potentiality, and its margin. Where do I see that? You could see a 10x easy in that without over 5 years. Not, and that's comfortable, let alone really progressively moving it. I think tokenization of stocks as well is starting. It has a lot of potentiality. In 5 years' time, maybe much more of a thing. It's got a natural competitor with some relatively, legacy systems, but you're talking, unfortunately, incentives which make it very hard to move. Again, not good grounds, probably needs a bit more time, but I think you will see some movement there. I think the root of those things and what happens after you get a lot of stablecoin movement, you get a lot of payments starting to flow firstly through crypto and not through other rails. What comes from that, I think, then are probably a massive growth in applications that make that simple for the common person to use. And I think you talk about this a lot, but I think you'll see the power shift from the chain and the stablecoin over to the application, where people assume this technology works. I can get a phone call from a whole different types of mobile phones, and I can even do it over my computer. I can call someone. There's a whole series of substitutes for it. I don't really care how it is, but the way the application, the interface, and its ease and its adoption, I think the focus will shift to that. And I think over the next 5 years, we're going to see, and this is a big prediction, but I think we're going to see a very dominant app globally come up and take a huge amount of market share worldwide in payments.
I think that's some great perspectives, Fred. And I guess that leads me to our last question. For people that want to look at what you've built and want to follow some of your thoughts around, where the world's going, where technology is going, what's the best place to kind of discover Finder and follow you?
No, I think I'm pretty active on Instagram these days, and you can just hop on. I don't have a huge following there, but I do promote my stuff and I put out my thoughts. I think it's a great place to go. I'm on TikTok as well. People are actually are more popular on TikTok than on Instagram for some reason. And I do write on LinkedIn. So my thoughts are quite business focused, and then really retail consumer insight. I think other people, like, I'm not big on Twitter. It's just, I may think those thoughts. I have rational. A lot of the ideas I put together are boiled down simplifications of what I see in the market, so that the largest amount of retail can understand.
That's awesome, Fred. Thanks for joining us. I've appreciated going on the crypto journey with you, your views around technology, the interaction of crypto with the fintech world, and all the experiences you've got to bring to that. It's been invaluable for me, and just appreciate you sharing them with our viewers today.
Thanks so much for having me. I hope, and just you've always been, I think, what a valuable and pioneer of the funds management. I think DACM's like a shining star.
Appreciate it, Fred. Thanks for that. Cheers.